Dora Miles, the Boatress, coming to you for Dockside Live 365. Today, I am interviewing Eric Fisher, boat insurance guy out of Ohio. Eric, if you'd like to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what it is that you do.
Yeah, hi Dora. Thank you so much for just the opportunity to talk to you for a little bit. Hey everybody. Yep, my name's Eric Fisher. I am the owner of Outdoor Adventure. We are an insurance agency that specializes in marine insurance, boat and yacht insurance. Been a
Spell it.
licensed.
Spell it. They'll need to know the
Okay. Yep,
spelling.
Outdoor Adventure. So adventure spelling ADVINSURE. Uh, we're an insurance agency that specializes in boat and yacht insurance and marine insurance. I've been around in the insurance industry now since 2013, basically doing nothing but marine insurance since then. I spent a little bit of time working for a national insurance carrier representing their boat and yacht division, and officially opened my own agency in Cincinnati as of April of 22. So my own agency here now. We've been around getting ready to start on year three.
Awesome. Well, so you know how I'll tell how I came across you and learned about who you were. Your phone's listened to you, and I think it's Facebook most of the time that listens to us, our conversations that we're having. And I had just told somebody about my boat had been totaled. I have a 2022 Avalon and a very nice Tritoon it's my baby. And I was talking to someone about my boat was totaled this past season, and I had only owned it for about a year and a half. And lo and behold, I get on Facebook and comes through the feed. Um, Outdoor Adventure comes through, the boat insurance guy talking about having your boat properly insured. And so I click on it. It was like a reel that came through. I guess it was one of your TikTok reels, maybe, or a Facebook
Yep.
reel. I don't know. But I clicked on it and I'm like, man, this guy really knows his stuff. And so I'm thinking to myself, people really need to know this information. So in the midst of having that conversation, checking out your page, I'm on Lake Cumberland. You're in Ohio. I'm in Kentucky. We have the Ohio Navy that comes down here all the time. All the
Oh
Buckeyes
yeah.
come and invade Lake Cumberland. We love it. Um, but having lost a boat and realizing what that's like, I bought mine out of salvage, so mine was not a total loss. Now mine's just a almost paid off loss. So, I get a little more joy driving mine. Nobody realizes it's totaled but me. But in 2016, Lake Cumberland suffered a huge loss with a lot of our marinas, with the marinas coming down on top of boats. And there were a lot of boats that were lost. And for a lot of families, that's devastation. That's a lot of memories that go down with those boats. And that was due to snow on top of the covered slips of the marinas. We had almost 400 slips that came down on our lake, and about 30% of them had boats in them. And so, those were large hits to those families, the marinas, and the insurance carriers. And right now in northern Tennessee, which is just a couple counties from us, Tennessee is experiencing the same thing. Within the last 2 weeks, with the snow that has come through, some marinas have come down on top of some boats. I'm going to try to screen share some pictures here that I've already shown Eric, and some videos. So if you're watching us on the YouTube channel, you'll be able to see the pictures. This was Green River a few years ago. And basically the pictures are just showing the marinas that have come down on the boat. Some of these pictures I got off of Facebook. And then 3 of the pictures were sent to me from one of the boat owners that's houseboat went down. These here that I'm showing is his idea. These pictures are a boat that just got brought out of the water 2 days ago that was down in Tennessee. And then I've got some videos that I'll play too as Eric is talking. Those are Jello shots. That is not a boat going down. But I'll go ahead and stop the share on the pictures and I'll go to the video. But that kind of got me thinking. I wonder if people truly understand the importance of having your boat properly insured. And when your boat goes down and you have fuel in the water and you have to lift your boat out of the water, would I be covered? That was, I started thinking, am I covered? Do I have enough insurance for that? And so you have fuel, you have the recovery of the boat, even once it gets on land and you have to have it stored somewhere. I mean, there are so many coverages. So after having a short conversation with Eric, I realized this is a whole interview. This is a lot of information that people need to know. And so with that, I can kind of go to Eric and, and you can kind of start to kind of go over some information, some tidbits of information that you feel like people, when you're buying a boat, you can start with little boats and go all the way up to big boats of the main things you need to know. And because our listeners are from ocean to lake, and we're talking small 22-foot runabouts all the way up to massive yachts. And
Right.
so we have a very wide audience of captains and boaters that are listening to our show. And so with that, Eric, I'll let you take it away.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. So just for a little bit of context about our agency, just for that, we are licensed from Michigan to Florida today. I write business anywhere and everything in between, from personal watercraft up to multi-million dollar yacht. So I totally get it. I'm an independent broker, so I represent a lot of different insurance companies. Where my agency is normally a little bit different is we're not doing a whole lot of home and auto and benefits and commercial and all the kind of other stuff that a lot of the other agencies do. My agency is solely focused on marine. So the insurance companies that we work with, really, that's all we're doing is we're looking at insurance contracts for what I'm going to say is the best marine insurance companies in the country, regardless of the type of boat or personal watercraft, whatever it is that you're going to have. Um, there's a couple of insurance companies that are out there now that do some very, very heavy marketing direct to consumer channel. These are the ones that you're going to see on TV commercials, radio ads, and stuff all over the time, or all the time. It's these same companies over and over and over. And I hear a lot of people that just say, well, I'm just going to take my boat and I'm going to put it with whoever has my home and auto insurance. And in my opinion, that's one of the biggest mistakes that people can make, because there are some of the better insurance companies that are out there that have the better policy contracts that aren't the companies that are typically doing your direct to consumer marketing. It's the companies that when you go through a broker like me, we can access these groups and typically find better coverage. Now, I can tell you from just a general insurance carrier standpoint, every carrier is really gonna have their own niche of what boats they want to write. So you may have this one company that does really good on wake boats, but they're going to be horrible on bass boats, and they're going to be this other company is going to do really well on houseboats. This other company is going to do really well on cruisers. So uh, the policy coverage that they have is really representative of the type of boats that they want to write. So that's where it's very important to find a decent broker who understands all the different policy contracts specific to marine and can help find you that better market. Uh, you know, a, a good example, and I know when we were talking the other day, we talked a little bit about smaller boats versus larger boats. What a lot of people may not realize is that there are different insurance products depending on the length of your boat. When you start working into the more of what I'm going to call the true marine style insurance companies, they have a dedicated boat program and they have a dedicated yacht program. And when the boat hits a certain length, the coverage is going to completely change to reflect the size of the boat. And that's when some of the things that we started talking about the other day. Um, so first and foremost, when it comes time to shop or really trying to understand, are you currently covered and covered appropriately? There's going to be a lot of questions that a broker is going to ask. It's going to be, what is the length of your boat? What is your experience? How many boats have you owned? Where is it at? How do you plan to operate it? I mean, there's hundreds of questions that we can go through to really kind of pinpoint the right insurance company and the right coverage for you specifically. So,
Well, and it was when we were talking the other day, you asked me, who is your boat insurance through? And I just was kind of dumbfounded. I said, I don't know. My insurance agent just told me
I
policy.
hear that more often than not. I hear that pretty frequently.
I did. I knew where the policy was. I reached over here in my drawer and I literally went, um, it's through Progressive.
Yep.
I said, it's through Progressive. And look, it's not even opened. But that's how we are. As I can drive a boat. I can drive just about any boat on the face of the planet. But don't ask me insurance questions. I don't have a clue. We trust our insurance agents are
Right.
putting us in the position to be covered should we suffer any form of loss, be it minor or catastrophic. We are depending upon our insurance owners. I mean, or our
Absolutely.
brokers. We're not insurance agents. I don't know. So I do know that if I have minimum coverages, after what I have in studying this and talking to you, I know that if I have minimums, I am not in a good position. I'm not. Lake Cumberland is a deep lake, and a minimum coverage is not going to get that boat raised from 130 feet from the bottom. That's going to start coming
Well,
out of my pocket.
yeah, and a big conversation that we had the other day was around just wreck removal and about different insurance contracts. And I'll kind of get into that a little bit. So when you have like your typical, I'm going to say your typical home and auto insurance company that, right, they write some boats, they don't have a true specialized marine insurance policy or marine claims team that's generally operating on the watercraft. The coverage just for wreck removal, for example, can be completely different depending on the insurance company that you write with. Your policy may say, okay, it's going to cover wreck removal, but that could actually fall under different parts of the policy. So, for example, there's one insurance company out there that's a very, very well-known company that their wreck removal typically falls under the hull limit on the policy. That means that, let's say if your boat's insured for $100,000 and it costs $10,000 to raise your boat up, they could potentially deduct that $10,000 from the hull value, and now you're only going to get a $90,000 payout for your boat. When you have a true marine style policy, they normally shift the wreck removal into your liability coverage, so it doesn't actually impact your hull value. And that's where you start getting into these true, what I'm going to say, the true marine style coverage. It works out much, much better for the consumer. But again, a lot of people don't even realize that there's big differences because it's an insurance policy, right? I just kind of assume that I'm covered, and you're not realizing that in your policy language, you're not as actually covered as what you think you are.
No, I was not. So however, I'm not crying about it. I'm happy with how my situation turned out considering the situation. But so my boat got twisted on a lift. I have a 25-foot Tritoon with the 4-foot extension on the back. So by the time you add the 4 feet, and I know my slip, how long my boat is like 30 feet long. It's a huge Tritoon. And so I have a 10,000 pound lift because by the time you put the gas and then the awkwardness of it being a front load lift, because it's the bow of the boat, it goes up and then it lifts. So it's attached at the bow of the boat at the dock. It's not a side. Um, a very large wave came through during a storm in the springtime, and it hit from the port to starboard side, and it twisted on the lift, and the frame of my boat got twisted, my brand new boat. And I bought it brand new. And so the dealership came down that sold it to me and looked at the boat, and they said, you can't fix this. This is not, your boat's totaled. They're like, your tunes are great, your engine's fine, but the boat is totaled. And so the insurance company had never seen something like this before. And the insurance company I was with told me, well, you need to pull the boat out of the water and take it to the manufacturer. And I'm like, but the dealership has already come down and looked at it and told me that the boat is totaled. And they were like, well, but we need a second opinion. I'm like, then call another dealership and have them come down and look at it. You're asking me, and I think Avalon is in Detroit. Your ask is, are they in Detroit? I
I
think
think
they're in
so.
Detroit. I said, you're asking me to take my boat and drive it all the way to Detroit. That is like having your Ford truck get totaled. And the dealerships are not adequately giving them what the information they want, and they say, we want you to take it over to the Ford manufacturer. Now, can you imagine pulling up with your Ford truck at the Ford manufacturer? They would laugh you out of their parking lot. And
Well,
so,
and it is the insurance company's job to investigate and adjust the claim. So that, as
well,
an insurance agent and a representative, we can normally help mitigate at least some of the conversations between the customer and the insurance carrier, or at least maybe
yeah,
guide you a little bit.
I got very lucky where my insurance agent is a great guy, but the insurance, once you get into I don't know who they are with past him with the actual insurance company. Um, they got very frustrating, and you could tell they at one point they even said, we're going to send you this check for this amount of damages. You can either get the boat fixed or you can just cash the check if you want. At that point, I knew what they were trying to do. They were like just trying to throw enough money at me to get me to walk away and leave them alone. And but I called my Scott Evans. He owns Coast to Coast Marine down here. He's the one who sold me my boat. Scott's a great guy, and he said, Dora. He basically, I can't say verbatim, but he basically said, if you go to sell your boat is twisted, it's totaled. You're gonna have to tell people hey,
Mhm.
here's what's wrong with my boat. In good faith, you cannot sell that as a boat that is, a clean boat. I'm like, okay, I'm calling the insurance company back. This is not fair what they're doing to me. Well, thankfully, Avalon, I will forever buy an Avalon Tritoon after what I went through with this company and how they treated me. They were wonderful. I called up there, and they're a large company, but they're a small enough company that every customer counts. And I got to talk to one of the engineers and like one of the people who works really high up in the office, and he was like, "Send me the pictures. I will enlighten your insurance people, and I will look at this boat. And if what they are requiring is something from us stating that that boat is totaled, send me the pictures. You don't have to bring the boat up here." And so apparently he called Scott Evans, which is my boat broker, and talked to him about what he saw. And he looked at the pictures, and they sent a letter to the insurance company that said the boat is
Wow.
totaled. And so I got now onto the insurance side of it. My boat I bought early COVID. So I bought my boat before the price hikes happened. So
Okay.
I have, and then because Scott didn't run the prices up like past MSRP. So I got a really good deal on my boat. He never started ripping people off during COVID. And when I got insurance for my boat, so I didn't have to put any money down on my boat because I had so much equity in it when I bought it. Um, I probably should have called back 6 months later, got more insurance on it because I insured it for what it was worth when I bought it. 6 months later, it was worth 50 grand more. And it's got a 300 horsepower engine on it. It's got the Mercury Verado on it. And so here I am a year and a half later, and I've totaled the boat. Now, I ended up walking away from the situation where I only owed $4,800 on the boat after they paid out. And I paid $25,000 to get the boat back out of salvage. And so I got the boat back. And now on the loan, I owe 4,000. I think right now I owe $4,100 on my boat. But
Yeah.
had I have been properly insured and 6 months later realized my boat was worth so much more money, I probably could have walked away with money in my pocket compared to what I owed on the boat and how much I had paid it off already. So, with that being said, I think that there's I thought to myself, I wish my insurance agent had called me and said, "Hey, Dory, your boat's worth 50 grand more than what you paid for it. Do you want to up your insurance premiums?" I'd been like, yes.
Well, so I'll talk about that for a moment. I'm going to actually reference back first to a thing you said a few minutes ago about the boat lift. Here's a question that I don't know if you're ready for or not. Is your boat lift insured?
Oh, I knew you were getting ready to go there. I knew you were getting ready to go there.
So
So,
the reason I asked that question, and then I'll come back to the values of the boats here in just a moment. But the reason I asked that is on most homeowners policies, there is no endorsement to be able to cover boat lifts. On some boat insurance policies, you can endorse coverage on the boat lift. So if the lift were to get damaged, it can be repaired or replaced for certain values. So just as another thought out there, it is possible to add a boat lift to some boat policies. So if you've dropped, especially when you get into Florida and you've got, these larger 35-foot boats that are sitting on lifts. I mean, they're 20,000 pound lifts that are costing 18, 20 grand. You want to have a decent
they're more
a
than that
decent
now.
insurance coverage on those. So you
Yeah.
can endorse that on some policies.
Yeah. So, just made note boat lift, add to policy because it is
Yep.
not. It is, I don't think it is. Maybe it is. I don't think it is, but that's obviously something that, my current agent is not a marine boat insurance guy. He
And that's
sells,
okay.
he insures my business for me, insures my home, insures my auto, and does my boat because as a consumer, we think we're doing the right thing. But since talking to you, I'm like, no, I need someone who specializes in marine boat insurance. This is all they do all day long. It's their bread and butter to make sure that I am covered. And I mean, I'm dealing with, $100,000 Tritoon and a $15,000 lift. I'm not dealing with $250,000 yacht. I mean, I
Right.
cannot imagine having a $500,000 boat, watching it sink, then to find out I'm upside down and owe hundreds of thousands of dollars in EPA fees, and I'm not going to get my boat replaced, and I'm out on what I've paid a mortgage on for how many years, and it all just sunk. I cannot I can't even fathom being in that position. And so rescue us, Eric. Tell us what to do.
Yep. Yep. So yeah, I had to throw that boat lift in there. And you're right about a specialized broker. So when it comes to watercraft, right? You've got maritime law that comes in place. Everything changes a little bit when you start getting on the water. And I think we are kind of programmed to try to just let our single agent just handle everything. That's actually how I used to be is, hey, everything I've got, just go to one agent and just handle it all. And I've kind of realized now, especially being the last, 10, 11 years in this industry doing nothing but marine, there's really a place for a specialized broker when it comes to certain types of risks. Actually, right before we got on this interview, I was talking to a gentleman in South Carolina that I'm getting ready to write two boats for, that he asked me in the middle of the call, hey, I've got a plane. Can you write insurance on my aircraft? And I kind of chuckled and I said, I'm going to tell you now, I don't know the first thing about it. I'm not your guy. I know who I can send you to. I've got a contact for that, but I am not your guy. I said, if you even told me your plane, I wouldn't know the first thing about it, and I don't even know where to begin there. So,
Down here, they
um,
land their planes on top of their boats.
I mean, the people have helicopters and stuff and landing them on
Yeah,
yachts but yeah, when
that's
it
probably
comes
a
to
whole
like
nother
air,
policy.
I have no shame in saying when it comes to aircraft insurance, I am not your guy. Like that is, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. So when it comes to boat insurance, so really one thing you said there does present a potential problem with insurance carriers. So insurance carriers are going to use a term called indemnification. Indemnification is kind of the entire backbone of insurance. It's to make the customer whole again, to make you financially whole in the case of you having a loss. Basically, what that means is and the way a lot of insurance carriers interpret that is we are not going to insure a boat for more than what you've purchased it for more than what you've put into the boat, because insurance is not here for you to make a profit. It's only here for you to make yourself whole again. So COVID has been kind of crazy in the boat insurance market because pre-COVID prices were pretty stable. Middle of COVID prices have gone absolutely insane, and now post-COVID things are starting to come down just a little bit. Not a lot, but they're starting to come down a little bit. So people are in many cases, hey, my boat's worth more. I want to insure it for more. And a lot of insurance companies are saying, no, if you didn't pay more for that boat, we're not going to do that because insurance is not here for you to be able to make a profit. So
But how
there's a
does
little
that
bit
work?
of a
How
Go
does
ahead.
that work? How would that work like with my situation? Had I not have been able to buy my boat out of salvage, and that's a perfect example. If I
Yep.
could not buy my boat out of salvage, I could not afford to buy my boat now because my boat now would have put me over 100,000. I mean, it would have put me brand new. My boat now would cost me about $140,000,
Yep.
and I paid 75 for it.
So
So
there
how would that
are,
have worked if I could not have insured it for what it was actually worth to
yep,
replace it? Is there some form of insurance that falls in the middle of that?
there are. So there's really three different ways that boats can be insured. They can be insured for actual cash value, which really nobody wants that. You have agreed value, which is the vast majority of boat insurance policies that are out there.
That's what
And
I
then
have.
there is replacement cost. So the three big differences there. So actual cash value is basically going to mean depreciation. It's going to mean that in the case of a loss, the adjuster is going to look at the current market value of that boat, and boats generally depreciate. So they're going to look at the current market value of that boat, and that's the amount that you're going to get paid for it. So if you bought a boat for 80,000, you're only insured for actual cash value. In 3 years, you may only get 65,000 for that boat if it gets totaled. Most policies, though, are going to be written on an agreed value basis. Agreed value means we're going to lock the value of the boat in, whatever you purchase that boat for. Let's say you bought a boat for $100,000. We're going to write a policy at $100,000. 10 years from now, if you have a total loss of that boat, even though the boat's now only worth maybe $30,000, you're going to get handed a check for 100,000 because we agreed at the start of the policy that the boat was going to be worth a specific amount, and that's the amount that it's insured for. Then you have replacement cost. Replacement cost is typically only available for boats anywhere new to 3 years of age, depending on the insurance carrier. Some only do up to 2 years of age, some do up to 3 years. But it basically means if you insure for replacement cost and the boat is a total loss within those first couple of years, then they are going to fully replace your boat with new like, kind, and quality. In many cases, they'll do upwards of 20% above the value. So if they did a $100,000 boat at replacement cost, they'll pay up to $120,000 to replace it with a new boat. But generally, after 3 years, that option completely goes away and it becomes a straight agreed value policy from there, just because boats do depreciate over the course of, generally over the course of its life. Now you've got personal watercraft that then becomes a completely different story. So, wave runners, jet skis, most of them cannot be written on an agreed value basis. It's either a replacement cost when it's new or an actual cash value. Most insurance companies won't do an agreed value on those. So, um, it'll definitely change, depending on the actual boat type. It also changes depending on the age of the boat. And I'll tell you a little bit of example of what I've started to see recently. So there are some insurance companies that will only insure boats up to 20 years of age, up to 30 years of age. Once you've got a boat that's beyond that age, there's just not as many insurance carriers out there, especially in Lake Cumberland. You've got a lot of houseboats, and there are still some older steel houseboats.
The capital of
When
the
it
world.
comes to a steel houseboat, there's one, maybe two insurance companies in the country that will even insure those.
Yep.
So it really limits the amount of available options depending on the age of the boat.
I
There's
looked at
also,
one. I looked at one
yep,
down at Lake Cumberland Marina, and the first thing I did was check in. I could not even find anyone to insure a steel hull.
Yep. Yep. I've got one company that I generally use for that. And they do a good job of it. I'm actually working with them, doing a 50-footer steel hull right now. And they do a good job. But it's really one of the only companies out there that will still do that. So there are certain segments of the boat insurance market that can become problematic for insurance just because a lot of the insurance companies have said, at this age, we're just not going to take those kind of boats. Now, with the COVID impact of boat costs just going through the roof, especially in like the southern part of the country where you've got a lot of center consoles, that the hull is still good, but people want to repower them with new engines. You'll have a 20-year-old boat that's now got a brand new 2023 outboard on it. Another example of a guy I talked to today. He's got an '04 center console that he just put two brand new 2023 Yamaha 250s on the back of it. He just dropped 60 grand in motors. So he said, okay, my $30,000 boat is now worth $100,000 because of these new motors. So what the insurance company is going to say, because they don't want you making money or profiting off of the insurance, okay, we need to see the amount that it's currently insured for today. You're going to have to show me the receipts of where you actually went through and purchased those items so we can then say, okay, this is now a true agreed value policy at whatever the new amount is. So they won't go above that, but if we can substantiate the value, we can get it adjusted for what it's currently at.
Okay. All right. All that makes a lot of sense. So now I'm going to jump to houseboat ownership, the bigger boats.
Yep.
And I'm going to read directly from my contract at my marina. So this is the personal injury and personal loss. And this is a hot topic for me right now because we are in the last, since 2016 and in our area, we are surrounded by marinas that are coming down on top of boats and
Yep.
boats that are sinking. And so and this is what my contract says under personal injury and property loss. The owner hold harmless the marina from any and all liability for or loss or damage to the above described property or the contents thereof due to fire, theft, collision, windstorm, accident, or like causes. The owner is responsible for any and all loss or damage to the slip, dock, or other marina property caused by the owner, its guests, or boat, hang on a minute, such marina's costs and expenses, including reasonable attorney fees. So basically, and I signed this. This is my marina contract. Underneath that, it says owner's liability. The owner shall be required to carry bodily injury and property damage liability insurance in the amount sufficient to cover any and all damage caused by or in the proximity of the owner's vessel. So basically, what I have signed, which, either that or don't get a slip, is your option. Sign it or don't get a slip and pull your boat in and out every single time you want to use it, which I am on my boat from Labor Day to Memorial Day every single day. So pulling it in and out of the water by myself is not something I can do it. I don't want to. So I pay for a slip. And
Yep.
so basically, this relieves the marina of every responsibility that there is. But on my end, if I damage anything, I'm responsible for reimbursing the marina and paying their attorney fees. That's what that says.
Yep.
Period. And so my question to you, how do I properly insure if I have a houseboat?
Loaded question. I love it.
I mean, like, I know that it's what do you do if you're because every Lake Cumberland boater, every single Lake Cumberland boater is in this situation.
Yep.
Everybody who puts a slip at a marina, I guarantee you 99.9% of us have signed a hold harmless clause to our marina. And we have also signed that if we damage anything, like if our boat catches on fire and we burn down the entire marina, we have signed that we're responsible for it. So, as an insurance agent, how do we? Because I can assure you, I doubt my policy is protecting me if my boat catches on fire right now and burns down that entire marina. I am thinking I am probably not properly covered. And I went through and read my contract 2 days ago, and I'm like, I'm panicking. I'm going, I might need to call my insurance agent and kind of do a reevaluation, maybe an umbrella policy over everything I
Yep.
own, like to protect me and my businesses. I mean, because this is serious stuff.
It absolutely is. And you said the key word there is umbrella. So I'll get into umbrella in just a moment. So so within boat insurance policies, you have liability coverage that is included. That is normally for bodily injury and property damage. There's also uninsured, underinsured boater that comes along as far as liability goes. But the main thing that you're looking at as far as what the marina is wanting you to carry is bodily injury and property damage liability. That is the part of your policy that will pay if you were to damage somebody else's property or you were to damage the marina property. If your boat burns down and takes half the marina with it, it is your property damage liability off of your policy that is if you are at fault, generally the first round to pay for that loss. This is the part of the policy that is normally the cheapest as well. Liability is extremely inexpensive, especially on boat insurance policies. Um, my normal limits that I try to make sure I'm riding with every customer, I start at the $500,000 limit and go up from there. A lot of customers I see, a lot of marinas are only requiring around 300,000 in total liability. Normally that's also in your contract. So I would say check in there as well to see if the marina specifically lists out you have to carry at least a minimum of this amount of liability. I've seen a lot of them say 300,000. My recommendation, carry as much liability as you can possibly afford because liability is what's going to pay for those type of events that would occur. Most boat insurance policies or any decent marine insurance carriers has the ability to typically go up to around 1 million in liability. And then a personal umbrella is where everything in excess would come into play from there. That is something that your normal insurance agent, so whoever's got your home and auto insurance, they normally have the ability to write an umbrella policy for you. The way an umbrella policy works is there is what's called underlying requirements. So, in order for your boat to fall under your umbrella, your boat policy has to have at least a minimum of a certain amount of liability. Normally, that's around a $300,000 mark. The same for your cars, the same for your home. So, it's basically your boat policy would pay first up to the maximum limits, and then your umbrella would kick up and pay anything from there whether you've got an additional million, 2 million in umbrella liability coverage. The important thing, though, out of all that is the underlying requirements. Um, the reason I bring that up, and it's all fresh in my mind because I just had this conversation a week and a half ago with someone in Tennessee, had a 48-foot Sundancer. Um, Beautiful boat. I was working on getting a quote for him, and he tells me that he has an umbrella policy. And he sends me the copy of his current insurance that he has for his Sea Ray. And his current insurance is at 100,000 in liability, and that's it. And he said, "Well, I've got an umbrella." And I
Umbrella.
said, "Well, chances are that never actually meets the requirements for your umbrella to even kick in. So you think that you're covered because you have it, but chances are you're not meeting the underlying requirements." He also had a personal watercraft that he had 50,000 in liability on. So we rewrote him, we got him all taken care of, and now his watercraft fall under his umbrella because we got everything bumped up the way it should be. So first and foremost, carry as much liability as you can afford on your boat policy. It's normally very cheap. And talk to your normal agent and get an umbrella policy and understand what the underlying requirements are for that umbrella.
I believe when I did my umbrella, because you have personal property, and our previous home had an in-ground pool, and I was always concerned about something happening with some, somebody getting in the fence, a child in the neighborhood or something, and drowning in the pool. And so that was my first, we need an umbrella policy, in case something happened and we were held responsible for it. Then we bought a farm on Lake Cumberland, and it had a 2-acre pond on it, and it's wasn't fenced in all the way around the property. I'm like, what if somebody's kid? So, like I almost drowned myself one day. And so now, so that's where my head goes every single time was, what if someone drowns? I don't want to be held personally responsible financially for that. And so that was when I started looking at umbrella policies to go over my home and business and everything else. And when I did it, I had to up all of my minimums.
Yep.
Everything had to be brought up to me. And I did not realize I was so underinsured should something have happened. I was I suffered a medical crisis in my early 20s, and I was in a coma for almost a year.
Oh, wow.
And I came out of that with $31 million in medical debt. And
Wow.
your health insurance companies, you will reach lifetime payouts. People don't realize that health insurance companies have lifetime payouts. And when you experience something like that, and it's a catastrophic financial loss, and you get hit with something like that, suddenly I'm glad it happened in my early 20s, because it made me realize that insurance is really important. Life
It
insurance
is.
is important. Had I passed away when I was 22 years old with 2 kids, my children would have been left with almost nothing. So insurance is incredibly important. Having your assets protected, and making sure that you are, in case you are sued, or whether it be for an accident or a fire, whatever it is, that you are properly covered. Those things are really important. Something that we talked about the other day that really made me start thinking, I have to think of what it was called. It was a law that had been written in it about fuel
Yep.
leaking into the water. And those numbers really scared me about, if your boat goes down and you leak 100 gallons of water or of fuel into the water, and we started going through some numbers. If you could talk about that a little
Yep.
bit, because everybody's boat has gas in it. And so if for some reason you leak diesel fuel, any fuel into the water, you are going to be responsible for getting it out. And so if you
Yep.
can kind of cover that.
Yeah. So there's two different ways that boat insurance policies typically respond to fuel spill. They either cover fuel spill as part of your liability limit, or they cover fuel spill at what's called the Oil Pollution Act limit. So what we were talking the other day is it's the Oil Pollution Act of 1990. It basically sets liability caps on all commercial vessels, recreational vessels, that if you were to have a fuel spill, how much are you legally liable for? That current amount today per OPA 90 is $1,076,000. That amount changes every 3 years. So every 3 years they look at it, they adjust it for an inflationary factor, and it's kind of a unique number that keeps showing up on the insurance policies. Like last year it was $997,100, and now as of March of 23 is when it got bumped up to $1,076,000. And then in 2026 it's going to do the same thing, and it'll have another inflationary jump, and it'll just keep happening. So boat insurance policies, they can either pay fuel spill as part of your liability limit, which is what a lot of your small boat insurance companies do, or your home and auto companies that also write boat insurance. They're only covering fuel spill up to whatever your liability limit is. So let's say if you've got 300,000 in liability coverage, that's the maximum that they're going to pay to. Well, the maximum they pay is 300,000. You're legally liable for $1,076,000. What happens if you have a decent spill and now the marina's got to shut down for a couple of days and they've lost revenue because of the event that happened? Let's say it happens on a July 4th weekend when
And
everybody's trying
Alan,
to go out, and the marina's got to shut down, and they now lose a ton of income or revenue because of that. You're responsible for the cleanup, any property damage, environmental damage, and all of it falls under that limit. So some insurance companies will say, hey, we cover fuel spill, but we're only going to cover it up to your liability limit, where a true marine policy is going to say, we're going to cover up to the Oil Pollution Act limits, and we'll automatically increase that as they increase it every 3 years.
okay. Well, I feel like we've covered an awful lot.
Yep.
I feel much more educated, especially since I've been able to hear this twice. And I do, when I was talking to you the other day, I thought, number one, there is no way I can repeat what he is saying accurately. Number two, this is not a 5 minute interview to where I can
Yep.
repeat what he's telling me on my show, and do my due diligence for my listeners. And so that was why I wanted to schedule this and do an actual, however long it took to cover it. What is your contact information? How can our listeners contact you?
Yep. So my website is the best starting place, outdooradventure.com with adventure spelled ADVINSURE. And or anybody can call me 513-653-3800. That's my main office number. At any time, any questions at all. If you want me to take a look at your current coverage and just see what you've got, see if there's better options out there, happy to do that. The last thing I would say is if you're shopping for a boat, get your insurance agent involved earlier in the process because normally the earlier we start the quote, the cheaper your insurance is going to be. If you wait to the last moment and then call the day you bought the boat and say, hey, I need insurance now, you're actually going to pay more for that insurance than if you would have called a week ahead of time while you were shopping. So, good way to save money.
Awesome. All right, you guys. So that's Eric Fisher. If for some reason you were not able to write that down, if you're out on your boat right now enjoying your day listening, or if you're in your car driving, you can always Google Eric Fisher Insurance Agent Ohio. And I can tell you, I know for a fact his name and phone number will pop up on a Google search. So this is Dora Miles, the Boatress with Dockside Live 365. Thanks for listening.